Jerome Corsi, a conspiracy theorist and author who claims Robert Mueller is threatening him with an indictment, filed a lawsuit on Sunday accusing the special counsel of constitutional violations and leaking grand jury secrets. CBS News Chief Justice and Homeland Security correspondent Jeff Pegues sat down with Corsi today. Jeff asked Corsi about how his lawyers were working with President Trump's legal team during the Russia investigation.
I wanted this to be one way. I wanted President Trump's attorneys, through my attorney, to know what it was like, what I was going through, so they could see from the inside what the Mueller operation was like.
Why would you want to do that?
Because A, I support Donald Trump, and B, I thought I was coming rapidly to the conclusion that this was a politically biased and I think criminally conducted investigation. And I'll stick by that.
But you see what happened with Manafort and his communications with the White House.
I don't, other people's cases, I'm not deeply interested in.
But that could be you.
Well,
in other words, they are saying that he's been sharing information with the White House while he's under scrutiny. That could be you.
Well, so let them go ahead and charge it if they want to. The issue is that commonly there are these kinds of mutual defense agreements, and they're between lawyers, and they happen all the time. I didn't think it was anything abnormal or unusual.
Unless you're being coached to say something that's not true, like Michael Cohen.
One-way communications. I did not want any instructions from Donald Trump. Didn't get any. Didn't want any instructions from Jay Sekulow.
And CBS News Chief Justice and Homeland Security correspondent Jeff Pegues joins me now. So fascinating, Jeff, to hear even just that little bit from Jerome Corsi. We just heard a little bit about his defense agreement, joint defense agreement with the president's legal team. Paul Manafort had a similar type of agreement, as you discussed there. What more did we learn about how this investigation is operating?
Yeah, and I think that's interesting, too, because several of these major figures in this investigation have these joint defense agreements with the White House. And what that is information sharing. But in this case, Corsi says this is a one-way street. I wasn't getting information from the White House. He says that he was only providing, or his attorney was only providing information to the White House. So it was a one-way street. So I thought that was interesting, and that was something he kept going back to. But what it shows you is that the White House has been getting this insight from some of these major figures as they've been called before the Mueller grand jury. What kind of questions are they asking? So, even though we as reporters have noted that the special counsel doesn't leak information, well, apparently some of the witnesses before the grand jury, they do, and they're giving that information to the White House. And it's interesting because last Friday we learned that this is something that the special counsel's office has accused the Manafort team of doing, of essentially sharing information with the White House.
Well, why does Corsi believe that this is a criminally conducted investigation? Did he provide any evidence?
No, but he sounds a lot like the president. The president has accused this of being an investigation led by 12 angry Democrats. Mm-hmm. Jerome Corsi raises some of those similar points, even though there is no evidence of that, of course. And I tried to explain this to him, that Robert Mueller is someone who is a Republican, but he didn't want to hear that. So he sounds a lot like the president in dismissing this investigation as something that is politically motivated.
Well, he also discussed why he rejected a plea deal. Let's play some of that.
I rejected this plea deal on moral grounds. I'm not going to go in front of a prosecutor swearing to God on a Bible that I committed a crime I did not commit. Now, as to regards to a pardon, the question you asked earlier, I have no anticipation of a pardon. I've not asked for a pardon. I've heard nothing about a pardon, and they don't expect one. If the prosecutors want to put me in jail for the rest of my life for having a bad memory, if they want to persecute me and talk to my stepson and everybody else who ever knew me, track down all my associates and talk to them, which they've done, fine. They want to put me in jail for the rest, I'll go for the rest of my life. But I will not swear before God a lie. And that's why I turned down their deal.
So, Jeff, given what we know, was rejecting the plea deal the right move for Corsi?
Well, we'll have to see. Of course, he's a figure in this because investigators are trying to figure out, well, why did Roger Stone know that WikiLeaks was going to release these stolen emails? Was it Jerome Corsi feeding him information? Did Jerome Corsi meet with Assange? Well, Corsi denies that he ever met with Assange. He does admit that, yeah, he wanted those emails, he says, like everybody else. Now, whether this was a good move for him to reject this cooperation with the special counsel's office, we'll just have to see. What is clear is that he is still under intense scrutiny. In fact, today, he told me that FBI agents were at his stepson's house. So he is under intense scrutiny. That is still the case.
Just to go back for a moment, what did Corsi have to say about any contact with Julian Assange?
Well, he says he didn't have any contact with him at all. That's what he says. He says he didn't have any contact with him through an intermediary or anything like that. But we'll have to see what investigators come up with, because it sure seemed to many of us covering this story back in 2016 that Roger Stone seemed to have an inkling somehow that this next batch of emails was coming. It was just so odd, and I asked Roger Stone about that when I interviewed him. And he gave me a couple of different stories about that, too. So we'll have to see what the special counsel's office comes up with.
All right, more to come. Jeff Pegues, so great to have you here. Thanks so much,
Good to be
Jeff.
here.